Have you ever met someone in your life who just never seems to lose it? Someone cuts them off and they feel nothing. A close friend betrays their trust. They smile and say it's fine. A coworker takes credit for their work in front of everyone. They just let it go. And people look at them like they've achieved some kind of spiritual enlightenment. Like they've figured out something the rest of us haven't. To never get bothered or angry by anyone on earth. But here's the question nobody's asking. What if they're not above it? What if they're just buried under it? Because psychology has actually identified something really important here that most people miss completely. There is not one type of person who never gets angry. There are two. And the difference between them is everything. The first type has genuinely done the internal work. They feel the anger, they process it, they choose a response. Psychologist James Gross at Stanford calls this cognitive reappraisal, and research shows it's one of the healthiest emotional strategies a human being can develop. These people are calm because they've actually worked through something. The second type, they don't express anger because somewhere along the way, they learned that expressing it was dangerous. And those two people look exactly the same from the outside. That's where this gets interesting. For the second type, it usually starts early. A home where conflict was unpredictable. A parent whose mood you learnt to read before you could read words. An environment where being easy and being agreeable was how you stayed safe. So the anger didn't go away. It just went underground. And here's what the research says happens next. A Harvard and University of Rochester study found that people who chronically bottle their emotions increase their risk of premature death by over 30%. Not because emotions are killing them directly, but because suppression is physically exhausting. Your body is holding tension it was never designed to hold indefinitely. Psychologist Daniel Wegner proved something uncomfortable too. The more you try to suppress a thought or feeling, the more insistently it returns. He called it the ironic rebound effect. What you push away doesn't leave, it waits. And you see this play out. The person who never gets angry at anyone until one day something small happens. Someone takes the wrong parking spot. Someone chews too loudly. And suddenly it's completely disproportionate. That wasn't about the parking spot. That was years of quiet pressure finally finding a crack. Here's something else that's fascinating about this. Habitual suppressors, people who consistently hide their emotional experience, are actually perceived by others as cold and inauthentic over time. Not as peaceful, not as evolved, cold. Because when you remove the emotional signal from your communication, people can sense that something's missing even if they can't name what it is. The connection never quite deepens. And then you wonder why you feel alone in rooms full of people who care about you. There's also the body keeping score. The vagus nerve, which connects your brain directly to your heart, lungs, and gut, responds to every suppressed emotion whether you consciously acknowledge it or not. This is why people who never get angry often carry their tension in their chest, their jaw, their stomach. Their body is having the conversation their mouth refuses to have. Now here's the thing that matters most. If you recognize yourself in any of this, the goal is not to become someone who explodes over everything. That's not emotional health either. The goal is that middle space that James Gross's research actually pointed to all along. Feeling the anger, naming it internally, not performing peace you don't actually feel. Because the moment you say to yourself, I'm actually bothered by this, something physiologically shifts. Research from James Pennebaker showed that simply naming and acknowledging emotions reduces their intensity in the brain almost immediately. You were not born unable to feel anger. Anger is information. It tells you when something matters, when a line was crossed, when you deserve better. Silencing it doesn't mean the message disappears. It just means it never gets heard by the one person who needed to hear it most. You, the person who is never bothered, isn't always the most emotionally evolved person in the room. Sometimes they're the most unheard one, and they've just been doing it so long, they've stopped noticing.